Sony has reported that the PlayStation 5 has sold 61 million plus units. This is a huge deal for PlayStation because this is what they're selling while they're recording and reporting a large decline in console sales year over year. This also is notable because it puts them notably ahead of where the Xbox Series set of consoles are. And I've been discussing that a bit online lately, and I wanted to highlight why this sales figure for PlayStation 5 is significantly impressive. Let's dive into it all right now. First things first, we both know that services are the way of the future, and likely the console will still play a part in that regardless of what anybody says. But this number, and by my calculation, based on the earnings report, it's closer to 61.6 million PlayStation units that have been sent out to people to distribute. And it's just hugely impressive. Here's what's been reported. The results were generally positive for Sony's gaming division overall, with Q1 sales in the games and network services segment up 12% year on year and operating income up 32%. So a lot of up figures. As a result of its Q1 figures, Sony has revised its forecast for the gaming division for its financial year 2024, adjusting its sales and operating income forecasts up by 3%. Tokyo-based industry consultant Dr. Serkan Toto told BGC, given Sony is going through a rather silent 2024 software-wise, the numbers actually look quite solid. For instance, you can see the positive effect on sales from the price increase for PlayStation Plus in their numbers. The big weak spot, however, is hardware sales. The year-on-year drop is not surprising, but quite significant. Sony can only hope that Astro Bot or the one or other new game coming this year will make people go out and buy PlayStation 5s again. Hardware has softened for everybody, but Matt Piscatella had this tweet that really started getting me thinking about where Xbox is, where PlayStation is, and just in a silo, how each sort of stands historically with each other. Matt Piscatella said the following: in the US, PlayStation 5 is still 7% ahead of PlayStation 4 life to date, and Switch is only 1.1 million units behind PlayStation 2 in lifetime sales. Even Xbox Series, for all its known challenges, is holding close to Xbox 360's life-to-date pace and will get a College Football 25 boost. No, the console market isn't doomed. Sheesh. Now, I think that's sort of in correlation to some statements that I made about how the Xbox console is now selling worse than the Xbox One is, and it's pointing to a lifetime of sales that could be less than the Xbox One ended up selling, and how that's concerning. Or he's just talking about the general sentiment that people have been talking about online. So to think about this a little bit more, I dove into the numbers. Now, this is an Excel spreadsheet. I don't know if the spacing thing works. It does. Okay. This is an Excel spreadsheet where I've gone through and I have painstakingly looked at the sales figures and linked out to my sources, so I knew I wasn't just a crazy person. The thing is, Xbox stopped reporting their numbers after 2015. So we have some estimates in here, but mostly these are data points from things like the ID at Xbox presentation that leaked the sales figures for the Xbox One and the Xbox Series X and S, the Brazil Activision case documents where they accidentally revealed an estimate of how many numbers that they had, or Nico partners saying, well, I'm citing MPD data here, but the Xbox One has sold this many units. So let's take a look at how the consoles fared. Now, we all know that the Xbox 360 sold very, very well. In 2005, Microsoft said that sold 1.5 million. By the end of 2006, 5 million. 2005 was the year it launched, so sales will be soft that year. 2007, they officially stated it was at 17.7. 2008, 28 million. 2009, 39.2 million. By 2010, 49.5. And in an official Xbox Wire post in 2015, they revealed that the console had sold 84 million Xbox 360s. That is a huge data point to be looking at and very impressive if you ask me. Yeah, so that was via Xbox Wire talking about just how many units they had sold by the end of the console's life cycle. And yeah, it's nothing to scoff at when you're talking about 84 million units sold. So just showing you that I did my homework here. With more than 84 million consoles sold into retail worldwide and 37.7 billion in lifetime game sales to date, Xbox 360 continues to enjoy strong momentum. This is from an Xbox Wire back in 2015. So that was the last official sales figure that we have, and that's the source everybody cites when referring to console sales. Now let's look at where the Xbox Series X and S is, because believe it or not, we have actually some somewhat official figures from Microsoft via mistakes where they have revealed how many they have sold or their partners have. Take-Two, for example, back in 2023, revealed at the end of 2023, there were how many consoles here? Sorry for the tinfoil hat. They had this slide on their earnings call where they said there's 77 million Gen 9 consoles outstanding worldwide as of December 31st, 2023. Now, what's interesting about that is at that same time, Sony was stating that they had sold 50 million plus units of the PlayStation 5 console. So that allowed people to do some very simple math, putting the Xbox Series X and S at 25 to 27.7 million units sold through 2023. So 25 to 27.7 does put it comparable to where the 360 was in the same time frame. But you have to remember that the 360 exploded in popularity in 2009, 2010, and would go on to sell 84 million units. Now you're talking about Mass Effect, and all of these series were just popping off for the console around this time period. They jumped from 28 to 39, from 39 to 49, and then to 84. Meanwhile, we know from the Take-Two earnings, it had 25 to 27.7, and I've put an estimate of 29.9 million units for 2024 so far, because they've had somewhere between a 30 and 40% year-over-year sales decline, which means they haven't moved that many units thus far in 2024. So, like I said, take all of these earnings with a grain of salt, because they're from things like the ID at Xbox presentation of June 2023, where they had only sold 21 million units. Now that slide came out in June 2023, and I have to imagine that is the best estimate we're going to get for where they were at in 2022. So I'm saying 10 million for 2020, 17.7. And then the only official figures we have are 21 million from an ID at Xbox presentation. So that's my estimated about where they were for 2022. You could say 20 million if you want to get fancy with it. And the Take-Two earnings, everybody put them from 25 to 27.7. And honestly, like, the numbers are pretty solid given the numbers we have to work with, because Microsoft does not state their figures. So do we really think that the Xbox Series X and S console is going to explode in popularity in 2024, 2025 and beyond? I don't see the console exploding in popularity, because the strategy has shifted within Microsoft. So I think we will continue to see soft console sales for the Xbox Series X and S, but an explosion of people who are joining Xbox Game Pass on PC and on any other platform where it ends up being available by the end of the console cycle. But how do these sort of, vague figures stack up to PlayStation? We have all of PlayStation's figures, because they literally have a website that you can just go to, and I can write them on this document. So for example, I can go all the way back to the PlayStation 3, and besides 2012, which they for some reason lumped in the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2 lifetime sales together, we know that as of 2013, they confirmed there had been 80 million units sold for the PlayStation 3. And then for the PlayStation 4, we very clearly know that they have sold, as of 2021, about 113.7 million units, which I believe correlates with some of the announcements they've made. And as of the end of Q1 2024, there has been 61.6 million units moved for the PlayStation 5, and that correlates to all of the stories we've seen about how the PlayStation 5 is outselling the Xbox 2-1. Now, is 30 million units for the Xbox Series X and S, which is about the estimate for 2024, anything to scoff at? No, absolutely not. However, we are on year 4 of the Xbox Series X and S, and if we look, they went from Nico Partners saying the MPD data cited puts them at 35 million Xbox Ones in 2017. That puts them significantly behind where they should be for 2023. And then if you look at the Brazil Activision case, they revealed some numbers in that documentation that put people estimating the Xbox One around 50 to 55 million units consoles sold. So do we really think that by 2025, Xbox will double their units sold? I mean, time's going to tell. And regardless, if they are pacing with the 360, a console that was released starting in 2005 and numbers through 2015, the numbers do seem to show that they are pacing behind where the Xbox One was. And the idea that they're just going to explode in growth seems unlikely to me. So anyway, had to go on that little bit of a tangent, but let's talk about the PlayStation 5 and why this sales dip of 20-something% decline year over year is still impressive. It's because they are still 7% ahead of where the PlayStation 4 was in the US at the same period in its life cycle. Again, according to Matt Piscatella, this is Genki, who also says the worldwide PS5 is at 61.7 versus 63.5 million for PlayStation 4 life to date, which is pretty good considering the stock shortages and increase of price of the PlayStation 5. You have to remember, all of this is with a decline in forecasts for how many PlayStation 5s are going to be sold. All of this is without me saying hit that subscribe button, hit that bell if you like this sort of rambly content, hit that like button if you're already subscribed. But yeah, all of that is with the significant decrease, yet again, for the PlayStation 5 consoles sold. All of this is with the COVID restrictions. All of this is with all the factors that typically have fought to slow the momentum of the PlayStation 5 sales. It's very, very impressive, to say the least. And if you look, you can look at how the units have been selling over. The Sony website's great because you can just go get any number that you want, right? So you got 3.5, 3.9, 9.7, 2.9, and 20 versus where the PlayStation 5 is for the same time period, basically 3.3, which is comparable to 3.5, 4.9, which is ahead of 3.9. You got 9.7 and 8.2. That's obviously lower. But look at Q4. They did 2.9 in 2016 versus 4.5 for 2023 and 20.8 versus 20 for the financial year. PlayStation is killing it in the console market, but they're also killing it in the other departments that are also important. So with a significant sales decline in hardware, with basically no games on their horizon, they are seeing massive success. And my concern in all the rants that I've done on Twitter, and I've been meaning to make this video for many, many days, my concern is that Microsoft has to be looking at these numbers and just saying, I don't know if we should continue investing in hardware. That is my concern, because Destin don't really see how the business people who only care about making money are going to be like, yeah, let's dump another 500 or $1 billion into R&D of our new console that's going to sell less than the last console. That's the concern that I have. Because if you look, my estimates, my crazy tinfoil hat estimates, put the Xbox Series X and S around 29.9 versus the estimate for the Xbox One around 2018 was, they were around 45 million units sold. And via the Brazil case, we know the Xbox One had sold around 50 to 55 million units. And ID at Xbox confirmed as of 2023, it had sold 58 million units, which sort of lines up with the end of the console life cycle and everything like that. So yes, it's sort of on pace with the 360, but the 360 saw enormous growth, like record-breaking year-over-year growth in 2010, 2011, 2012. You can go back and read those reports. And that's what we're seeing with the PlayStation 5. The question is, do you see, and let me know in the comments below what you think, do you see the console in the modern market exploding in popularity? You're talking about going from 30 million to 60 million units in a matter of a few years. I don't see that within the tea leaves, because people can still play Call of Duty on their PlayStation. They can still play all these games. I do think we see an uptick in Game Pass subscriptions and things like that, but it's going to take a very, very long time to bring people over to Xbox. Now, all of that said, do I still think Xbox and PlayStation will even out in terms of revenue? It does seem likely, given the fact that Xbox has decided to diversify its portfolio. But PlayStation, even with basically nothing, has, per their own call, leveraged third-party games like Helldivers 2, like Stellar Blade, to continue looking like a great option in terms of a console for people to buy. And Xbox needs that. They have some fantastic games coming in 2025 and beyond. So time is going to tell what will happen here. But that's why I want to talk about hardware, because when you start looking later into the future and everything about where Xbox is going, you have to realize that the next generation of consoles will likely be the last one under Phil Spencer's helm, because Phil Spencer is going to be eventually entering retirement age at that point. And then after that, so I kind of did a ramble of this on Twitter. Let me just bring it up. Here are my thoughts on Xbox hardware going forward, since people seem to care. I do think they're going with a two-pronged approach, and it'll be the most powerful console ever paired with a badass handheld that launches around the same time. And to be honest, I think it's a really exciting and interesting change of pace for them in an important way. But it does feel like it needs to hit for them given these recent numbers. And the really weird thing is, by all counts, I think the Xbox Series X is pretty great. I really do. I think the Xbox Series X and S are great consoles, but there's all of these things that keep happening where developers are like, oh, we can't release our games as fast because of this weird Xbox Series S issue. So we're going to need to launch it on the PlayStation 5 first, and then figure out how to get it to work on the Xbox Series S thing. And if the rumors are true that they are doing a handheld and an Xbox Series X for the next generation, there's a potential that that same problem could creep up again. Continuing on though, it's just not selling in terms of hardware. Can a handheld / beefy console turn it around for them though at this point? Another aspect to consider is that we're talking about a console dropping in 2026, the handheld most powerful ever console, maybe 2027, 2028, whenever it ends up coming out. And then the next one wouldn't be until what? 2030, if you look at console life cycles. At that point, 2030 beyond, you're talking about Satya Nadella no longer works at Microsoft. Phil Spencer is probably retired. You know, Sarah Bond, I believe she's 55, so she'll probably have taken the reins at that point for a little bit. There's going to be a lot of internal turmoil. And that's why I say I am concerned that Microsoft is going to drastically change their strategy with the console, especially when you look at the figures. And when I actually write them down based off the little slivers of data that we have, it does make me wonder, well, 30 million, which is where I estimate the Xbox Series X and S is at, is definitely lower than the 40 to 45 million that they were at in 2018. And that's also lower than where the 360 was at in the same time period. So Matt says it's on pace with the 360. Okay, but 360 saw astronomical growth in the back half of its console life cycle. And we're in a modern market where I just don't think that's going to happen ever again. The same thing happened with the PlayStation 3, don't forget, because the PlayStation 3 wound up selling 80 million plus units. And I think it actually would go on to the final figures eventually beating out the 360 in lifetime sales. So those two evened out. And in terms of just console hardware, I don't see that happening. Sony is so far ahead with the PlayStation 5. They are trouncing their own numbers with the PlayStation 4, which is very, very impressive to say the least. And it's going to be interesting to see where things land at the end of this console life cycle. I see the PlayStation 5 coming darn close to where the PlayStation 4 landed, which would mean that the PlayStation 5 could be the second or third best selling console that they have ever made, and it's going to be very close. And if the Series X and S keeps posting negative 42% year over year sales, then the Xbox Series X and S could wind up being the second worst selling console. And that's something that I really wanted people to pay attention to and pick up on within my conversation. Do I think Xbox will get out of hardware? I certainly hope not as a fan. I love the Xbox console. I think the Series X is great. I think the Series S is great. I think something is going on though, like lack of killer software to move those units that's exclusive, because Doom the Dark Ages is still going to be cross-platform. So that means we have Fable and whatever the other game that they just confirmed for 2025. And we also have the holiday games for this fiscal year to see if it moves the console. And I just not seeing it in the tea leaves. But let me know. Maybe you think I'm crazy. I am a little caffeinated up. I'll admit it. I've been out in the sun all day. So if I look a little sunny or whatever you want to say in the comments below, it's because I was out at the zoo with the kids this morning. And this one had been eating at me. I wish I had made graphs. I do not know how to make graphs. But I'm going to save this sheet so I have it for reference in the future. And if you have data points for any of the years that I missed for Xbox, I would love it, because we don't really have concrete data or estimates for, the launch year of the Xbox Series X and S or 2021. We just have the ID at Xbox presentation where they revealed both the lifetime sales of the Xbox One at 58 million and the likely 2022 sales of about 20 to 21 million for the Xbox Series X and S. And then the Take-Two earnings revealed that it's at 25 to 27.7 million units about for the Xbox Series X and S. And that is through 2023. So with a Q1 of negative 42% year over year, that means they've sold what? Maybe 3 million units in Q1. That's not looking good to pace with the Xbox 360, which went from 28 to almost 40 million units by the end of 2009. And then by the end of 2010, they had moved another 10 million plus units by the end of the fiscal year. Anyway, sorry, ramble over. The PlayStation 5 is doing really good. That's why I think the PlayStation 5 is very impressive from a console sales perspective, but I would love to hear your thoughts below. We all know Xbox has diversified their portfolio. They're focusing on cloud. They're focusing on Xbox Game Pass, and they are ahead in the cloud market. They are ahead in most of the markets that are important, but I am curious about where they land on hardware. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments below. I forgot to mention, Tom Warren pointed out that was a 27% year over year slump for PlayStation, and they're still 7% ahead of the PlayStation 4. It's impressive. It's an impressive number. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit the subscribe button, hit that bell. Sorry for the longer one, a little rambly. I've been digging into these numbers all morning. Well, after the zoo, and just curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Hit that like button if you're not already subscribed. All right, here's all of my members. Thank you so much to the members. If you want to support the channel and become a member, you can do so by clicking that join button right down there. And if you want to see what's going on with Bungie, I have this update, and now I can move on from this console video and sales figures that I've been saying I would move on from for a while, and talk about some of the other things, like how Marathon isn't living up to expectations according to Schreier. Let's get into that for the next video. For now, I'll see you for the next one.